Third grade, now that your design has been printed on the size of paper that we need for our James Rizzi foreground, middle ground, background cityscape, we can go ahead and start decorating it with some color. Before we start coloring, we're going to go ahead and we're going to flip it over. Because these pieces are not all going to be put together at the exact same time, I need to make sure that I know whose they are in case they get misplaced. So please write your first name, your last name, and your class code. If you don't remember your class code, it is up on the board in front of class. After your name is on your project, you can flip it over, and the first thing that you're going to notice is up on the top, it's solid gray. That solid gray we no longer need. So whether it's just the waves, or whether one of your boats or your fish or one of your sea things is above the water, anything that's solid gray we want to cut off with a scissors. Now, our printer here at school does not print all the way to the edge of the paper, so you'll just have to pretend that the waves or the lines are going all the way to the end. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to cut off the dark gray, and all I want to keep is anything below the dark gray, which should be all of my decorations. Once you're done cutting, you can go ahead and you can take your scraps and you can take them to the recycling bin. Before we start coloring, I know that our drawing has an outline, but we want it to really stand out. Remember, we're learning about pop art, and pop artists use very heavy, thick black outlining to define all of their shapes. So we're going to use a Sharpie to outline. Please go over to the cabinet between the sinks. Make sure that you're putting a piece of paper underneath. The paper can go back when you're done. We just want to make sure that we're keeping the Sharpie off the tables. You're going to go ahead and you're just going to trace over all of your lines. Now, outlining is really important because it's defining everything that we just drew. So this is not something that you want to rush through. You really want to take your time, and plus you can't erase Sharpie. So if you make a mistake with Sharpie, it's definitely going to be that way for the remainder of the project. My biggest tip when outlining is instead of pushing a line, which will make it wavy, I always start away from me and I pull the line, because now you're going to get straighter lines from just the acts of gravity. So if I were outlining this first fish, I would rotate my paper so that when I was outlining, I was pulling the line towards me instead of just free-handing and using a lot of wrist. So I would continue to move the paper and I would just pull the line towards me, and this is going to help you with control, and you're going to get much straighter, nicer outlines than if you were just using your wrist or going away from your body. because we are using our supply kits that were given to us at the beginning of the year, our choices would be to use marker, which wouldn't work as good for what we're going to do today. So we're going to be using our colored pencils once again. Remember, if your colored pencils need to be sharpened, please go ahead and use our handheld sharpeners, putting our shavings inside the cup. If the cup is getting full, please walk it on over to the garbage can and throw the shavings away, but please don't throw our sharpeners away. So make sure you're grabbing the sharpener out before you dump out the shavings. We are not going to be learning about any color theories for this project. However, if you would like to use our color harmony worksheets, they're over in between the sinks at your table spots, and you're more than welcome to use those. My biggest advice for you today is the water is going to be blue, so you are going to want to stay away from light blue, dark blue, and any version of purple, because those colors are dark and the water is going to be dark. So my advice to you is, even though they're fish, even though they're boats, try to stay on the brighter side of colors so that it's not blending in with the water. And remember, it's pop art. So if you want to color your fish orange, you can color your fish orange, because we're not looking for a realistic painting. We are only going to be coloring in our items. We will be painting our water with watercolor paints. So just like we did with our clay, we're going to be using our colored pencil as a resist. Remember, a resist means that it's going to push something away, and we're going to be pushing the paint away with our wax color buildup of our colored pencils. So anything that gets left white is going to turn blue from our blue paint. If you want something to be white, whether it's bubbles or whether it's the inside of the mouth for teeth, you are going to want to use a white colored pencil to color those in, so when you paint over the top, it doesn't turn blue. Remember, there's lots of ways to color. You can be a circle colorer. If you are somebody that colors back and forth, remember, after you go back and forth in one direction, you can turn your hand and go in the opposite direction to help fill in any of the spots that were missed. And the more times you do this, the better your coloring will look, and the brighter your color will appear, and you don't have to push super hard and hurt your hands. So that's one way of getting a really good color job, by going back and forth, up and down, back and forth, left and right, and repeating that until you get a nice solid color. So the colors are up to you. Again, maybe stay away from the darker colors. Definitely stay away from the blue, because we'll be painting our water blue. Okay, third grade, once you are done coloring with colored pencil, a few things to just double check before you break out the paint and start painting. Please make sure that you've done the best of your ability to stay inside of our nice thick black lines. Make sure that you've colored in each thing as nicely as possible. Remember, the more colored pencil that you have, the better this next part is going to work. If you have a lot of missed spots, anything that's white is going to turn blue from the paint, which leads me to my last reminder. If you want something white, please double check that you went over all of the white with a white colored pencil. So I'm checking my teeth, I'm checking my mouth and my bubbles, I'm checking the insides of my ships, and it looks like I missed one. So double checking is always a really great idea. If you forget, you can grab it. My windshield here for my boat would have turned blue like the water. So definitely want to make sure that I go over it with white because we're going to get reflection and I don't want it to get lost with the water, so I do want it to be a different color. So I've double checked everything. Some of you may have noticed that I did use black. Black is always okay, just like using white is always okay. Just make sure you're not using too much of it. Remember, James Rizzi was a pop artist, and pop artists love bright, out of the color tube paint. They didn't like mixing a lot of colors. They like just bright colors right out of the tubes for painters. So a majority of my colors were that. I stayed away from blues and purples because I know that a majority of this is going to be blue. Once you're ready, you can walk over, you can grab a blue cup, you can fill it with water. Please do not fill it all the way up. On the inside, there's numbers. On one side, there's a 100 with a mark, and on the other side, there's a 4. That line is perfectly fine for water. You're only going to be painting with one color, so you don't have to go back and forth a lot today to get new paint or wash out your brushes. So we have our watercolor kit. Our brushes in our water will lift. Don't wipe the water off. We do want a lot of water for this to work out best. And I always love to load up my brush with lots of paint. So I'm going to go ahead and spin my brush once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I like to do at least 10 spins because otherwise the color is going to be very, very, very light. So for those of you that just go back and forth quickly with the brush, you're going to notice that your water isn't going to look very blue. It's going to look very watered down and the color is not going to pop. So loading up your brush is going to help you get a nice dark blue. And the great part about this is while you're painting, pull, lift, pull, lift. If you happen to go over your boats by accident or your fish by accident, it's okay because just going over it with your finger will get rid of that paint. So if you accidentally paint over something, you can wipe it off because that water and that paint is just sitting right on the top of the wax from your colored pencil. So we don't want to go over it on purpose, but again, the colored pencil is going to help the paint stay on the top, and then you can go ahead and you can wipe it off with either a paper towel or your finger. And you're just going to keep painting until your entire water is blue. Okay, third grade, once you are done, we can go ahead and we can take your foreground and you can go and put it on the drying rack, and you can go up to your folder. You can grab your middle ground, which is going to be our skyscrapers, and you can watch video number 2.